Hello, and welcome to day 4 of this Bible reading project that I started, where I decided I wanted to read through the Bible once again. I'm just a normal, everyday person. I'm not a scholar or a pastor or what do they call a female pastor, wife? I don't know, whatever. I'm not any of those things. I didn't go to school for any of this stuff. I am just a normal person reading the Bible and trying to learn more about it. So I am a Christian. I'm reading the Net translation of the Bible because it's just a very literal translation, has a lot of translator notes. And this way I just want to get my own feel for what is in there and not take any outside opinions right now, at least, or at least limit that just to get my own idea of what the Bible says first, get my own foundation. So I'm inviting you to join me. It really helps me to do this. I can go back and watch it later. And if it helps anybody to be able to watch this and come along with me in this journey, more power to it. And I would love for you to join me. So today we are reading Job. And Job is a very early book of the Bible, but it's not, we're only on day 4. Yes, 4. So, Job is very early chronologically, so we're reading chronologically through the Bible, so not page 1 through page 5 million. We're reading as things happen in time. So we just got done with the first couple chapters of Genesis, and we're hopping over to Job because that's just what happens next. Before we start, I'm not the best with prayers, and I don't want to make anyone uncomfortable with how uncomfortable I am. So I really like the Bible recaps prayer that they start with on the beginning of each day of their reading plan. And that's actually how I got to the Bible the first time, was following their chronological reading plan a couple years ago. It has a really great podcast that goes along with it that really helps kind of like keep the momentum. It did take me longer than a year just because of life, but I did get through it, and I love that whole thing that they have. So we're going to borrow the prayer that they open with because I felt like it was good centering prayer. So, God, give me wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. God, let any knowledge I gain serve to help me love you and others more and not puff me up. God, help me see something new about you I have never seen before. God, correct any lies I believe about you or anything I misunderstand. God, direct my steps according to your word. Amen. Okay, see? It's just so succinct. I love it. Okay. On to Job. Now this is a hard book. Like not like the words are hard, but the concepts are hard. And I would almost challenge that it's one of the more difficult ones to wrap your head around. At least, I mean, I've studied Job probably more than any other Old Testament book, so I know what we're about to get into. It's very poetic, but also there's just a lot of theology behind like what is happening. What am I reading? So okay, it's enough of that. Let's go into it. Job's good life. Oh, by the way, I will be studying as I go because I don't like to continue on if I have a question. So if that annoys you, maybe just read, skip forward. But maybe this isn't the video for you. But if you have questions and you want answers as we go, that's hopefully the same questions that I have. So Job's good life. There was a man in the land of Uz whose name was Job. And that man was pure and upright, one who feared God and turned away from evil. 7 sons and 3 daughters were born to him. His possessions included 7,000 sheep, 3,000 camels, 500 yoke of oxen, and 500 female donkeys. In addition, he had a very great household. Thus, he was the greatest of all people in the East. All right, where is the East that he's talking about? So the translator note says the expression is literally sons of the East. The use of the genitive after sons in this construction may emphasize their nature. It would refer to them as Easterners. Sons of the South in contemporary English, dwellers in the East. That doesn't actually help me a whole lot, other than knowing that they are in East somewhere. East what? East what? I guess land of ooze. East ooze. Let's see. A term used several times in the Bible Net. A son of Nahor, a descendant of Seir. These are clues to follow. The location would be the north of Syria or south of Edom. Book tells how Job's flocks were exposed to Chaldeans, the tribe between Syria and the Euphrates. Okay. So that kind of gives us an idea of where. And the most plausible location then would be east of Israel and northeast of Edom in what is now North Arabia. Okay. Verse 4. Now his sons used to go and hold a feast in the house of each one in turn, and they would send and invite their 3 sisters to eat and drink with them. When the days of their feasting were finished, Job would send for them and sanctify them. He would get up early in the morning and offer burnt offerings according to the number of them all. For Job thought, "Perhaps my children have sinned and cursed God in their hearts." This was Job's customary practice. So he is figuring that they might have done something when they were feasting that they shouldn't have done, and giving offerings for them. So if there's any Job's customary practice, the imperfect expresses continual action in past time. So he did this all the time. Let's see. Yeah, I think I'm good on that passage. Okay, moving on. Satan's accusation of Job. Verse 6. Now the day came when the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan also arrived among them. Now, we'd seen this before in other. There's something in my eye. I apologize. We've seen this in other. Back in Genesis, we went into a little dive into what sons of God meant, and like, was that brothers of Jesus, or is that something completely different? And this looks like it refers to something similar, where they're not actually sons of Elohim, which is the name given to God, but it's an idiom to describe their nature and relationship to God, which indicates they're supernatural of some type, and their submission to God as Father or Lord. So probably angels or something. Or in the pagan literature, the sons of God refer to the lesser gods or deities of the pantheon. So something more than a human, less than God himself. But then it says, and Satan also arrived among them. So it seems like maybe it's uncertain if Satan was a son of God, in terms of if he was an angel or a fallen angel, or maybe he wasn't considered. Maybe he didn't consider God his father, so therefore he was not considered a son of God. Let's see, the translator note on Satan, the word means adversary. Here, the superhuman adversary, or Satan. The word with the article means the meaning of the word should receive prominence. Satan is the great accuser of the saints, which I've heard that before, that he was the great accuser. So Satan wasn't necessarily his name, but that's what they call him. He came among the angels at this time because he is one of them and has access among them. Even though fallen, Satan has yet to be cast down completely. Okay, so that's kind of the fallen angel thing I've heard in the past, that Satan was a fallen angel that is a great accuser of God and questioner of God. Okay. Verse 7. The Lord said to Satan, "Where have you come from?" And Satan answered the Lord, from roving about on the earth and from walking back and forth across it. So the Lord said to Satan, have you considered my servant Job? There is no one like him on the earth, a pure and upright man, one who fears God and turns away from evil. Then Satan answered the Lord, it is for nothing that Job fears God. Oh, is it for nothing that Job fears God? Have you not made a hedge around him and his household and all that he has on every side? You have blessed the work of his hands, and his livestock has increased in the land. But extend your hand and strike everything he has, and he will no doubt curse you to your face. So the Lord said to Satan, all right then, everything he has is in your power, only do not extend your hand against the man himself. So Satan went out from the presence of the Lord. Okay, so first thing, so Satan was roving about on the earth and walking back and forth across it. Okay. And then it almost seems out of nowhere that he says, have you considered my servant Job? It's like, we don't know what Satan said that made God say that. The Hebrew says, have you placed your heart on Job? This means directed your mind to. This question is undoubtedly rhetorical, for it's designed to make Satan aware of Job, and God extols his fine qualities. Oh, so maybe he's just sitting about and going, hey, have you seen that Job guy? He's pretty good. And then Satan, so here's kind of one of the first big questions of Job is, did this really happen? Right where I'm not questioning if it really happened. We're going to take everything at face value in the Bible, that the Bible, this is just going to be the premise is that the Bible is true and good because I'm a believer of God and that he gave us the Bible. So we're just setting that as the foundation, that if it's in the Bible, it's true. But understanding what it's saying is what we're doing here. So it seems like Satan's like, hey, can I mess with one of your guys? And God's like, yeah, sure, go ahead. And that seems a little messed up. So digging into what's actually happening here is kind of the big story of Job. Like, how could God let this happen? How could God let bad things happen to a good person? And it's a complicated story, complicated thing to work yourself through. And that's been one of the big questions. Like whenever I talk to other Christians or non-Christians, like how could bad things happen to good people is one of the big hurdles that people have to get over. And we're gonna walk through that a little bit here. So Satan's saying, well, yeah, of course he believes in you. You've made everything nice for him. If you made things not nice for him, he's going to, then he'll curse you to your face, he says. Now when he says everything he has is in your power, the only reason Satan has any power is because God is giving it to him. So God still has all the power. And the versions add a verb here, delivered to or abandoned to the hand of Satan. And so that's one thing I've heard, is that this is not God taking away, or this is not God punishing Job. This is God taking away his protection of Job. So God isn't the one doing the bad thing. God is giving grace and mercy to people, and when he takes that away, because that's, if it's mandatory, it's not grace or mercy. If it's voluntary, then it is grace or mercy. And so when he has that choice to not offer that, that's what's happening here, is he's choosing to not give that grace and mercy and let the things that would naturally happen. But okay, moving on. That's how I'm understanding this. If I am very open to comments on this. If you have other interpretations of what's happening, that's the whole point of me doing this, is so I can read through and interpret what the words are saying for myself and take input from a bunch of different sources. So, okay. 13. Now the day came when Job's sons and daughters were eating and drinking wine in their oldest brother's house. And a messenger came to Job, saying, "The oxen were plowing and the donkeys were grazing besides them. And the Sabians are, the spoilers spoiled them." The translators may have connected the word rather than this one. Or they may have just understood it to be general invaders from southern Arabia. Okay. Swooped down and carried them all away, and they killed the servants with the sword. And I, only I alone, escaped to tell you. While this one was still speaking, another messenger arrived and said, "The fire of God has fallen from heaven and has burned up the sheep and the servants. It has consumed them, and I, only I alone, escaped to tell you." What's the fire of God? Lightning. Oh, that makes sense. Lightning. Okay. And there's references why they say it's lightning, but that makes sense to me. The first blow came from enemies, the second from heaven, which might have confused Job more as to the cause of his troubles. Okay. Verse 17. While this one was still speaking, another messenger arrived and said, "The Chaldeans formed 3 bands and made a raid on the camels and carried them all away. And they killed the servants with the sword, and I, only I alone, escaped to tell you." I think this is some of the more repetition that the Old Testament has a lot of times, just to help people remember all the different things. Also, a lot of things end up being very poetic, where it's told in a certain format. So I'm just noting that there's repetition here. I can already see it coming up again in this verse 18. 18. While this one was still speaking, another messenger arrived and said, "Your sons and your daughters were eating and drinking wine in their oldest brother's house. And suddenly a great wind swept across the wilderness and struck the 4 corners of the house. And it fell on the young people, and they died. And I, only I alone, escaped to tell you." 20. Then Job got up and tore his robe. He shaved his head and then threw himself down with his face to the ground. He said, "Naked I came from my mother's womb, and naked I will return there. The Lord gives and the Lord takes away. May the name of the Lord be blessed." In all this, Job did not sin, nor did he charge God with moral impropriety. The last clause is difficult to translate. It simply reads, "He did not give unseemliness to God." So he didn't blame God or anything. So he tore his robe. From what I understand, that's a custom at a time of mourning to indicate the heart was torn. The garment, mantle, here is the outer garment frequently worn over the basic tunic. Okay. And then when he says, "Naked I came from my mother's womb, and naked I will return there." Are there any notes on that? The second part must be interpreted only generally to refer to his departure from this life. Parallel to 1 Timothy 6, verse 7, "For we have brought nothing into this world, and so we cannot take a single thing out either." Yeah, see, I think your life is bad. It gets worse. Okay, continuing on. Chapter 2. Again, the day came when the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan also arrived among them to present himself before the Lord. And the Lord said to Satan, "Where do you come from?" Satan answered the Lord, "From roving about the earth and from walking back and forth across it." Then the Lord said to Satan, "Have you considered my servant Job? For there is no one like him on earth, a pure and upright man, one who fears God and turns away from evil. And he still holds firmly to his integrity, so that you stirred me up to destroy him without reason." So is this saying that God did those things? Or God let him? God is saying that Job maintained his integrity, so now it's clear that Satan moved against him groundlessly. It doesn't really stirred me up to destroy him without reason. What I'm curious is, like, does that mean that God did it or that Satan did it? Does it matter? I mean, ultimately God let it happen. Either way. The point of the verb to be gracious and its derivatives is that the action is undeserved. In fact, they would deserve the opposite. Yeah. So we'll leave that as a question, I guess. So more kind of the same format as before. Have you considered Job? The same format. Verse 4, but Satan answered the Lord, "Skin for skin. Indeed, a man will give up all he has to save his life. But extend your hand and strike his bone and flesh, and he will no doubt curse you to your face." So the Lord said to Satan, "All right, he is in your power. Only preserve his life." The irony of this passage comes through with the choice of word. The verb means to keep, to guard, to preserve. The except clause casts Satan in the role of a savior. He cannot destroy this life, but must protect it. Possibly. I mean, who's really protecting his life? I guess the Lord still is. Satan wants to. Okay. Job's integrity and suffering. Verse 7. So Satan went out from the presence of the Lord, and he afflicted Job with a malignant ulcer from the sole of his feet to the top of his head. Job took a shard of broken pottery to scrape himself with while he was sitting among the ashes. And I thought this was leprosy, but maybe not. Let's see. Okay, the general consensus is that Job was afflicted with a leprosy known as elephantitis, named because the rough skin and swollen limbs are animal-like. But the Hebrew word, which is like boil, can indicate an ulcer as well. Leprosy begins with such, but so do other diseases. I mean, really, it could have been anything. This is supernatural. Okay, well. And he's scraping himself. Why? Maybe to try to cure him? Or maybe it's really itchy? Oh, okay. Disease required constant attention. Scraping it with broken pottery in order to prevent the spread of the infection. Yuck. Okay. So this is not great. Verse 9. Then his wife said to him, "Are you still holding firmly to your integrity? Curse God and die." What a wife. I mean, I guess she's lost all she's had also. I mean, she lost her children and her everything, and now she's losing her husband. So technically, he has more than she does right now, depending on how you value your own life versus your spouse's. Or we'll just say equal. If you value your spouse as the same as your own, right? Okay. But seems like maybe her resoluteness is not the same. Okay. But he replied, "You're talking like one of the godless women would do. Should we receive what is good from God and not also receive what is evil?" In all this, Job did not sin by what he said. So that, man, makes you feel bad. Also, like, if you were to say this to someone who's actually suffering, I don't know if it would go over that well. Like, hey, you got that bonus last year. Now you're getting, I don't know if that would necessarily go over the best, but if the person says it, this is all it's all different coming from the person who's suffering versus saying it to a person that's suffering. Well, just two separate things. But definitely is something to ponder on if you're going through something. The visit of Job's friends. When Job's 3 friends heard about all this calamity that had happened to him, each of them came from his own country. Eliphaz the Temanite. Eliphaz? Yeah, we'll say Eliphaz. Bildad the Shuhite, and Zophar the Naamathite. They met together to come show sympathy for him and to console him. But when they gazed intently from a distance, but did not recognize him, they began to weep loudly. Each of them tore his robes, and they threw dust in the air over their heads. Then they sat down with him on the ground for 7 days and 7 nights, yet no one spoke a word to him, for they saw that his pain was very great. I've heard that this is a really great example of how to be there for a suffering friend or family member. And that this is a good example of how you can show sympathy and console somebody when you don't know what to say. Each of them tore his robe, so they're just as sad. They're sad for him, and threw dust in the air over their heads. What would the passage guide say about this? Don't show these. Cornerstone. I almost don't really want to go into some of the passage guides just because I feel like this is such a deep chapter. I almost want to just get my own sense of it without taking too much else. But I want to know why they threw the dust over the head, Sitting in the dust, those seem to be conventional gestures of grief. Nothing in the narrative suggests that throwing dust in the air was a means of summoning, as Moses did, afflictions of boils on the mourners themselves. So, if you've heard that they were summoning themselves to have the affliction, that doesn't seem to be what happened according to this commentary. Whatever the precise meaning, that's just gesture. So maybe they're not sure either. Okay. So it's just, this commentary is just saying at such times it's important to be a friend, most importantly by simply being present. Okay. Chapter 3. Job's dialogue with his friends. Job regrets his birth. Okay, so there's a note here on the translation that the previous chapters were prose narrative, and that this chapter, however, commences the poetic section of the book containing cycles of speeches. Okay, so chapters 1 and 2 were prose, and then chapters 3 through 41 are poetic, very poetic things. After this, Job opened his mouth and cursed the day he was born. Job spoke up and said, "Let the day on which I was born perish, and the night that said, a man has been conceived. That day let it be darkness. Let not God on high regard it, nor let light shine on it. Let darkness and the deepest shadow claim it. Let a cloud settle on it. Let whatever blacken the day terrify it. That night let darkness seize it. Let it not be included among the days of the year. Let it not enter among the numbers in the month, the number of the months. Indeed, let that night be barren. Let no shout of joy penetrate it. Let those who curse the day curse it, and those who prepared to rouse Leviathan. Let those who curse the day curse it, those who are prepared to rouse Leviathan." So the translator note on that, I didn't quite understand that, but I mean, I know Leviathan. It says, Job employs here the mythological figure Leviathan, the monster of the deep, or chaos. Job wishes that such a creation of chaos could be summoned by the mourners to swallow up that day. Okay, got it. Let its morning stars be darkened. Let it wait for daylight but find none. Nor let it see the first rays of dawn, because it did not shut the doors of my mother's womb on me, nor did it hide trouble from my eyes. So, a very intense way to say I wish I was never born. Okay. Job wishes he had died at birth. Verse 11. Why did I not die at birth, and why did I not expire as I came out of the womb? Why did the knees welcome me, and why were there two breasts that I might nurse at them? For now I would be lying down and would be quiet. I would be asleep and then at peace, with kings and counselors of the earth, who built for themselves places now desolate, or with princes who possessed gold, who filled their palaces with silver. Or why was I not buried like a stillborn infant, like infants who have never seen the light? There the wickedness ceased from turmoil, and there the weary are at rest. There the prisoners relax together. They do not hear the voice of the oppressor. Small and great are there, and the slave is free from his master. So I have this little question here of, does he, I don't know if Job, the idea of so Catholicism believes that you need to be baptized as a baby. I know that this baptism is not a thing here yet. So were babies, did they think that babies went to heaven or hell? Because that would kind of, I mean, it seems like he thinks if he died at birth, then he would be not a slave of his master, or not a slave, and he would be at least relaxing. So he doesn't think he'd be in hell, right? Does he think he'd be in heaven? Is that? I would be asleep in that peace with the kings and counselors of the earth, who built for them places now desolate. This world tombs, the bird means desolate, solitary. Like pyramids of Egypt, these tombs would have been built in the desert regions. He would be saying then that instead of lying here in pain and shame, if he had died, there would be great ones. He'd be with the great ones of the earth. Anyway, he wishes he'd died. That's a summary of that. So then verse 20, longing for death. Why does God give me light to one who is in misery? Why does God give light to one who is in misery, and life to those whose soul is bitter? To those who wait for death that does not come, and search for it more than hidden treasures, who rejoice even to jubilation, and are exultant when they find the grave? Why is light given to a man whose way is hidden, and whom God has hedged in? For my sighing comes in place of my food, and my groanings flow forth like water. For the very thing I dreaded has happened to me, and what I feared has come upon me. I have no ease, I have no quietness, I cannot rest, turmoil has come upon me. So then chapter 4, this is his first friend, begins to speak. And was he the oldest? Is that the idea that he's the oldest because he's speaking first? I kind of remember that. Okay, it doesn't say which one he is, but he's a Temanite. Then Eliphaz, we'll say Eliphaz. Then Eliphaz the Temanite answered, if someone should attempt a word with you, would you be impatient? But who can refrain from speaking? Look, you have instructed many, you have strengthened feeble hands. Your words have supported those who stumbled, and you have strengthened the needs that gave way. But now the same thing comes to you, and you are discouraged. It strikes you, and you are terrified. Is not your piety your confidence, and your blameless ways your hope? Call to mind now, who, being innocent, ever perished? And where were upright people ever destroyed? Even as I have seen, those who plow iniquity and those who sow trouble reap the same. Okay, so he is saying that, hey, have you ever seen someone who was innocent get set, punished? Like, what'd you do, man? Those who plow iniquity and those who sow trouble reap the same. Like, you must have done something pretty bad. By the breath of God they perish, and by the blast of his anger are consumed. There is the roaring of the lion and the growling of the young lion, but the teeth of the young lions are broken. The mighty lion perishes for the lack of prey, and the cubs of the lioness are scattered. What? That doesn't help any. Okay. The mighty lion perishes for lack of prey, and the cubs of the lioness are scattered. So none of these little translator notes are helping. We'll just say, okay, he's saying, what'd you do? That's probably not the best thing to say to someone who is suffering. Like, I can't help but say something, man. What'd you do? Okay. So he continues. Now a word was secretly brought to me, and my ear caught a whisper of it. In the trembling thoughts and the dreams of the night, when a deep sleep falls on men, a trembling gripped me, and a terror that made all my bones shake. Then a breath of air passes by my face. It makes the hair of my flesh stand up. It stands still, but I can recognize its appearance. An image is before my eyes, and I hear a murmuring voice. Is a mortal man righteous before God, or a man pure before his Creator? If God puts no trust in his servants and attributes folly to his angels, how much more to those who live in houses of clay, whose foundation is in the dust, who are crushed like a moth? They are destroyed between morning and evening. They perish forever without anyone regarding it. Is not their excess wealth taken away from them? They die, yet without attaining wisdom. Call now. Is there anyone who will answer you? Gotta admit, I got a little lost there. Ungodly complainers provoke God's wrath. I'm kind of curious what other translations would say in this. Okay, so NIV, that's kind of my go-to, like when I need help understanding what's being said in modern day English. Okay, well, a word was secretly brought to me. My ears caught whisper of it. Amid disquieting dreams in the night when the deep sleep falls on the people, fear and trembling seized me and made all my bones shake. A spirit glided past my face, and the hair on my body stood on end. It stopped, but I could not tell what it was. A form stood before my eyes, and I heard a hushed voice. Can a mortal be more righteous than God? Can even a strong man be more pure than his maker? Dog, what are you doing? We are reading poetic things. You are fluffing my carpet. My dog's down here. Hey, Crystal. You want to say hi? Nope. She does not. Well, stop fluffing. You're making noises. Okay. Let's try. If God places no trust in his servants, if he charges his angels with error, how much more do those who live in houses of clay whose foundations are in dust, who are crushed more readily than a moth? Okay, I don't know if that... I feel like this is saying the same thing, and I'm going to have to access my poetic English classes from high school, which might not happen right now. So we might just continue on. Chapter 5. So this is just continuing on what his friend is saying. Call now. Is there anyone who will answer you? To which of the holy ones will you turn? For wrath kills the foolish person, and anger slays the silly one. I myself have seen the fool taking root, but suddenly I curse his place of residence. His children are far from safety, and they are crushed at the place where judgment is rendered. Nor is there anyone to deliver them. The hungry eat up his harvest, and take it even from behind the thorns. And the thirsty swallow up their fortune. For evil does not come up from the dust, nor does trouble spring up from the ground. But people are born to trouble, as surely as the sparks fly upward. For evil does not come up. So, and something to keep in mind with Job is that these are the things his friend is saying, and those are the things that Job is saying. And none of these are things that God is saying. So all of this, until we get to the part where God speaks, we kind of just have to take as this is descriptive of what is being said, and not necessarily whether descriptive versus prescriptive, they say. So it's not necessarily saying this is true. This is just saying what one person's saying. So this is still his friend saying evil doesn't come from nowhere. It always comes from something. And little do they know that it did come from nothing. It just, Satan's doing his thing. Okay. Blessings for the one who seeks God. So this is still his friend, I believe, saying, but as for me, I would seek God, and to God I would set forth my case. He does great and unsearchable things, marvelous things without number. He gives rain on the earth and sends waters on the fields. He sets lowly on high, and those who mourn are raised to safety. He frustrates the plans of the crafty, so that their hands cannot accomplish what they had planned. He catches the wise in their own craftiness, and the counsel of the cunning is brought to a quick end. They meet with darkness in daytime, and grope in the noontime as if it were night. So he saves from the sword that comes from their mouth, even the poor from the hand of the powerful. Even the poor from the hand of the powerful. Thus the poor have hope, and iniquity shuts its mouth. Therefore, blessed is the man whom God corrects. So do not despise the discipline of the Almighty. Okay, so his friend is still saying, this must be discipline. Hey, you're being blessed, man. This is just discipline for something you did. It seems like what he's saying. Verse 18, for he wounds, but he also bandages. He strikes, but his hands also heal. He will deliver you from 6 calamities. Yes, in 7 no evil will touch you. What does that mean? He will deliver you from 6 calamities. I don't know. Is there any other translation? Let's see. Yeah, no. They all say the same thing. Okay. Verse 20. In times of famine, he will redeem you from death, and in time of war from the power of the sword. You will be protected from malicious gossip, and will not be afraid at the destruction when it comes. You will laugh at destruction and famine, and need not be afraid at the beasts of the earth, for you will have a pact with the stones of the field, and the wild animals will be at peace with you. And you will know that your home will be secure, and when you inspect your domains, you will not be missing anything. You will also know that your children will be numerous, and your descendants like the grass of the earth. You will come to your grave in a full age, as stacks of grain are harvested in their season. Look, we have investigated this, so it is true. Hear it and apply it for your own good. It's like, hey man, we know what we're saying. Listen to us. Yeah, the resulting force would be something like, and you had better apply it for your own good. Okay, so with this, the speech by Eliphaz comes to a close. His 2 mistakes are that his tone was too cold and the argument does not fit Job's case. So that's kind of the two big things that we pointed out as we read it, is that you don't say that to a person suffering, because he's like, hey man, you must have done something wrong. And then also he was wrong about him doing something wrong. So, yeah. And he's saying that as soon as you do start, if you go to God and do it, whatever you did wrong, like fix it, then you'll have all these things come to you again. You'll be protected. God will love you again. But this is all false. Maybe not all false, but a lot of it is. So, okay, I think that is a lot to digest for one day. Next time we're going to continue in Job. Job's going to reply to his great friend who just gave that wonderful speech to him. So yeah, looking forward to it, and enjoy your day and blessings, and we'll see you tomorrow.